and welcome to the Comerica Bank Business Sense Bootcamp webinar, hosted by Latina Style. Our topic for this session, Forging Forward in Business.
Morning and welcome to the Comerica webinar on business, Comerica's Hispanic Business Resource Group in partnership with Latina Style. And welcome everybody and good morning. My name is Jackie with Latina Style Magazine. And right now I'd like to introduce you to Robert Barr, our COO of Latina Style, who will be moderating this amazing seminar. So welcome, Robert, and good morning.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We continue our series with Comerica Bank on how to come out of this crazy pandemic that is affecting small businesses so strongly and with so much detriment to small businesses. I am delighted that we have a long-standing partnership with Comerica Bank, and this series is, I think this is session number 4 that we have in the series, and we'll be delighted to bring you some updates on what's going on with the economy, while at the same time give you some updates from some distinguished panelists that have come from Comerica and from her clients to tell us what's going on with small business and how do we keep moving forward, because we're still not out of the woods, and there's a lot of things that need to be corrected moving forward, and we need to get the best advice possible and to let us know how they have been faring through the pandemic. First, we have with us Veronica. There we go, Veronica Corona, who's a longtime partner of Latina Style, and a accomplished business owner and leader. Veronica is the vice chairwoman of the board of directors for the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And Veronica has experienced the hard and the lows of this pandemic. So please, Veronica, would you please join us and let us know how are you doing, how's business, and a little bit about yourself. Veronica?
Good morning, Robert, and good morning, everybody who has joined us this morning. First of all, I want to thank David Bentacore from Comerica Bank for inviting me here today, and thank you, Latina Style, for having me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Veronica Corona. I'm founder and president of CM Cleaning Solutions, and I like to say that we keep it clean while you sleep, because most of the cleaning that we do are for office buildings after our hours, long after everybody's gone home for the day. And of course, we still find a few people that like to work late. I've been in this service industry now for over 20 years. For the record, I started when I was 15, and I've been in business now for this November will be 12 years that launch into being an entrepreneur. And I'm happy to share that I am the vice chairwoman of the board for the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. And I'm going to brag a little bit because I am the first woman to serve in this position in the 43-year history of the Chambers of Commerce. So it's an honor and to serve our community and help other small businesses, especially during these times. So thank you, Robert, for having me here today.
Thank you, Veronica, and it was wonderful to see you in Las Vegas, who actually was the first live event that Latina Style attended since the pandemic began in Las Vegas. Joining us next, we have with us Mr. Mark Vasquez. Mark is an attorney, partner for Texas at DeForest Trusted Attorney and Law. Mark deals with business issues with companies that are in Texas and across the border from Mexico. And Mark, can you please give us a little snippet of yourself and tell us, what is your expertise?
Sure, Robert. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. You, along with Latina Style and Comerica Bank and Isela Aguilar, who invited me to participate in this webinar, which I think is pretty vital during these times, as you mentioned earlier. And as all of you know, my name is Mark Vasquez, and I'm an attorney and I'm a partner with DeForest Abogados, and we focus on business, cross-border business, emerging business, entrepreneurs. I've been doing this for over 20 something years. And basically my focus has always been on business, specifically, emerging businesses, cross-border businesses. So during these times, I've become a really trusted resource to a lot of our clients during these times, as far as navigating everything that's been going on, whether it's the PPP loans, the tax issues, the labor shortages, and basically access to capital. So we've been doing that, for all our clients during this last few years, especially now with the pandemic. And again, thank you for having me here again today.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mark, and we're going to listen a little bit later about your insights on how the crazy situations that we've always been facing for the last years, affect our businesses on the legal side, because that's the last thing we want, is to get legally tangled up on something on top of everything else that we experience to make our businesses survive. And our returning panelist with us is Valdemar Hernandez. Valdemar Hernandez has been with us at all the Comerica series. And Valdemar is based here in California, and he deals with small business issues and pretty much with the survival of small business issues and how Comerica is addressing all of these issues to help us in the community. So Valdemar, please join us.
Good morning. Good to be here with everybody, and good morning to everybody. And Robert, I will correct you. I am not from California.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
I love the Lone Star State, born and raised in Dallas. But on a serious note, I'm delighted to be here today. Always excited to be part of these events and to partner with Latina Style, and of course appreciate Comerica for giving us this opportunity and the ability to come out and partner with organizations like Latina Style and make a difference in the community and to the members and of the organization as well. So I've been in banking and finance for over 20 years. I specifically work with who I believe was the most impacted segment during the pandemic, and that was the small business owners, the entrepreneurs who have a hobby that take it to a business and then go as high as about $5 to $6 million in annual revenue. That's really the business owners that I work with, and at no time more than ever did last year in 2020 was there an opportunity to really see that a partnership with a business banker or a trusted advisor was more important. So hopefully today we can bring you some insights, some updates on what we see, and make a difference in your everyday life.
Well, let me start asking some questions with let me start actually with Veronica. Veronica, tell me, how was your business impacted by the pandemic? What happened when all of a sudden they told you, people are getting sick, or we need to close our business? What did you do, especially in the kind of business that you are?
Yes, especially in the commercial office building. Well, first, when the pandemic first started, the first priority was, we need to spruce up the cleaning. We need to take it to another level. And we started kind of doing that at the beginning, maybe like early March. But then by late March, we had to do some reductions. We ended up laying off 22 people. And we also had to do some reductions in other buildings. So some buildings that were doing 5-day-a-week service went down to 2 days a week. Working 8-hour shifts went down to working 4-hour shifts. So there was a definitely major impact on several of our employees that had been working for us for many years.
So then after that, he came pretty much telling people to shut down, right?
Yeah, and some of our accounts stayed steady. I have some customers that I'm very grateful, even though employees were just going once a week to maintain, because you still have to maintain the building. I mean, we had some buildings that the soap, believe it or not, started rotting because it's in there. Nobody's pumping the soap out. So it's rotting, which are things no one thinks of. The toilets have to be flushed because then they start creating that, line, the hard water line. And so things like that. So there was a couple of customers that regardless if their buildings were empty, they continue paying my staff for going to work. which I thought was really great. And, same hours, they didn't even reduce hours, just their same paycheck. So that was very grateful. That was about 3-4 customers. Other customers was business as usual. We had to continue cleaning. They expected to continue building because continue cleaning the buildings because there was some people that were coming into work. Maybe it was more of a skeleton crew. And then it kind of stopped for a while, but we were still cleaning. So it's been kind of like a easy ride. But then I think last year, we're going to open. So then everybody wants to spruce up everything. And then, oh, no, just kidding. We need to go back to, minimal hours. So it was just kind of a little bit of a roller coaster back and forth as where are we going? What are we doing? And then this year started slow, but lately in the last 3 months, we've been very busy because now everybody's going back to normal. The school started last year as well. I have a couple of private schools that we clean, and they wanted to spruce it up, and that actually brought in extra people because now they want a person who's dedicated just disinfecting the entire day, especially around the kids. The restrooms, the common areas, the things that you wouldn't think of, right? Most of the times people don't think that on a daily basis, maybe 3-4 times a day, you have to disinfect the handles to the doors, to the restrooms, to the light switches, to anything that's touched that most of the time goes unnoticed.
So the survival of a lot of the businesses, hinge on the PPP loans.
Yes, absolutely.
In Baltimore, the PPP loans were an SBA initiative, but actually was implemented by the financial institutions. So what was the marching orders that you got at Comerica Bank when that came out?
It was pretty interesting. Obviously, everybody was new to this new product, this new loan. Direction was very spotty. There was a lot of miscommunication. So just about every banking organization probably had a misstep or two. But speaking for Comerica, we had some corrections done immediately, and we were able to, of course, gather team members that were strictly dedicated to providing this PPP funding. So at no time in my life have I ever worked on a Sunday, but that was certainly the norm during that time frame. So Saturdays and Sundays were common. I remember, waking up at 5 in the morning like I normally do to check my email, and there was stuff from my underwriting team already coming in at like 4:30 in the morning. So there was a huge dedication by a lot of people to make sure that this, of course, was efficient for clients. And then, of course, through the learning, we became more efficient by producing a online platform for folks to be able to apply. So by the middle of the round and second round, we had online ability for folks to go on and request those dollars. And then at this point now, moving into the forgiveness, we also have the online platform to serve in that capacity to make sure that it's more efficient, that clients can go online at their desired time to be able to process the forgiveness of these loans and, of course, get them off their books.
So, Mark, all of a sudden, all these small businesses, that I guess they fall into a number of categories, but there are 3 categories that pops into my mind. One of them is the one that actually closed the doors. The second one is the one that are, holding on any way they can to stay in business. And yeah, there are others that are flourishing. In those 3 categories, there are legal issues that are attached to all of them. So how did your firm, and how about you? What were the issues that you saw as the most imperative that the small businesses take care immediately to mitigate any kind of legal issues that they were facing?
Then that's a really good question, Robert. And I was going to tell you from my perspective, and my firm's perspective is we seem to be even more busy during that time because a lot of our clients, had already projects going and they did not stop. So a lot of the issues were okay. Now we actually can fine tune more of our projects and be able to roll them out, with a little bit more, deliberation, because a lot of the issues were causing it to slow down a little bit. So they actually got to reevaluate as far as, okay, what access to capital do we have? What are we going to need? Because they already had funding in place, but then there was other funding that was coming because of the PPP loans and other types of loans that the SBA had rolled out. So we were preparing for that part, for them to even get greater access to capital, which maybe they wouldn't have received during, other normal times. So we were prepared for that. And we were preparing them for that, to be able to, acquire this capital and have their employees still, be working full time, whether it was from home or whether it was their offices. And most of the offices were shut down. So they had like skeleton crews that would come in and out. But none of those issues were faced where it comes to, I need to shut down. So they were not thinking I need to shut down. They were like, I need to reevaluate and actually, how are we going to carry out these projects that are going to be coming to fruition maybe in the next year or two, and with that capital. And the other important questions that we were getting was the legal liability when it came to the COVID, because they knew it was like, if we're dealing with customers, we're dealing with clients, we're dealing with employees, what are those legal issues that are going to be faced in the workplace where, where people are going to get sick there, or they're going to contract COVID there? What was going to happen? What legal protections were they going to have, and what basically policies and procedures they were going to get in place in order to avoid those legal issues when they were going to open up or they were actually going to interact? Because some clients still had to interact with customers and with employees on a face-to-face basis, just because of the very nature of their business. So there were some of those things that we had to put in place as far as for them to be able to protect themselves legally. And I know there was a lot of talk about, protecting businesses as far as liability when it comes to the contraction of COVID, whether it's at the workplace or at the customer's workplace. So it was one of those things where, we were looking at all those issues and putting, good procedures in place for them to actually feel protected and basically have their employees feel protected as well. So when it did open up, employees were feeling secure in their workplace. There were also, the customers were actually, secure coming to meetings, depending on the type of nature of the business, whether it was a retail location, whether it was actually just, doing meetings in conference rooms. So it was like, how are we going to do those protocols? And that was a lot of the issues that we were facing and resolving during all this time. And we're still doing that, considering now that everything has opened up a lot more here in Texas and across the nation. So it was still putting those procedures in place to carry it out.
Mark, how did insurance companies react to this liability? Was that liability actually part of the policies, normal policies that we have in business?
And some are and some are not. And that's what had to be reevaluated at those times, because most people get insurance and they don't read what's in the policy. They just know, I have a standard commercial general liability policy in place that I think it's going to protect, if somebody comes into my office or my establishment and, whether they fall down, whether it's any types of those issues, but does it really cover the contraction of this virus if you come into a place? And some policies do and some policies don't. And a lot of them we saw that, they were excluding pandemics, so that was something that you had to, if you wanted added on as an additional rider for your insurance policy. And because nobody ever thought that, I guess we were going to go through a pandemic, in our lifetimes, because we knew in the past that happened. So a lot of those things that you would normally see in a policy was not covering the pandemic. And so that was something that was eye-opening for a lot of businesses when they were basically shutting down.
How, Valdemar, how did you advise your clients to the fact that all of a sudden maybe some of them were not getting paid? That they had all these receivables that were not getting paid, and the chances of getting it paid loom like in the future. How did you advise them? What to do when they had all those collectibles and they just couldn't get a hold of them?
Well, that was certainly the case. It was a domino effect for a lot of businesses. And it was just a matter of preparation. And that's kind of the advice that I would give them, making sure that they made preparations. We didn't know, of course, how long this situation would go on for. So you simply have to look at what you have and work with what you have. And of course, it really brought on an expense management mindset, minimizing expenses and making sure that you use everything and that you have to maximize the opportunity that's available. So it certainly made for a difficult road for these businesses that could not collect quickly or as the terms were originally set. But of course, as this is talking about this segment, forging forward, right? They had to, yeah, they had to make some changes. They had to make some adjustments. Everybody had to adjust to the conditions and, of course, forge forward with what was there, and hopefully counting on those businesses coming to a good spot in their business to, of course, then make that receivable paid. And for the most part, most businesses were able to collect. There were certain ones that did not, and because of course closures, some businesses did not get paid on some things. But for the most part, most people were able to collect. But it really taught folks to be prepared for what's around the corner. You just never know what looms around the corner. And we were in a market that was so good, business had been so good that everybody was kind of coasting through, and it was like, like the bus would never stop, right? But it certainly did, and it was eye-opening for businesses and business owners to be prudent during the good times, making sure that during those good times that we set funds aside, during the good times that we work on access to capital for an emergency situation. Do we have 6 weeks or 6 months worth of access to capital to tap into should an emergency come up? And that certainly was a lot of the consultation that I was able to give these small business owners, and kind of eye-opening for them. Some people were very thankful, of course, that the tough time came early in their business, and it's really prepared them to go forward. And now in the future, they're much more prepared for whatever may come their way, just because it's kind of taught a lesson, and we're all in the same boat.
Veronica, so this time, actually your business is one of the kind of business, if I understand it correctly, that the pandemic did not devastate you. You just pivot. So how did you move forward? I mean, what was your state of mind? How were you rationalizing everything at this point in time?
Well, yeah, it did pivot, and then it didn't pivot, and then it pivot, and then went back and forth. Emotionally, it was a little bit draining. I had a lot of concern for our employees because they were out in the front lines. I think my water bill went up for the first 6 months because I'd go out every day and then come in and literally go jump in the shower and wash the clothes I wore, because it was kind of uncertain of what was going on. Because we had so many employees out there still working, I felt that it was important for me to show up and let them know that we were here, even though it was like outside the door, they're inside the building. One of the things that gave me peace of mind with them was that most of our work is done after hours, so the buildings are empty. And even for the ones that are working in the daytime, the buildings were very empty. So it made me feel comfortable, and it's just kind of a reminder, stay away from people, make sure you're wearing all your protective equipment. So it was a bit of an emotional roller coaster, because I felt like I have the responsibility for all of our employees, their well-being, and making sure that no one gets sick. And I have to tell you, of all our employees during the pandemic, I only had one person get sick. So that was not too bad. Out of 80 something employees, one. That's a blessing, and grateful for that. And it was funny, he didn't even get sick at work. He got sick being around his family. So that was interesting, because it didn't happen at work, but he still was out. He goes, but I feel fine. I feel fine. I feel fine. I said, yeah, but you need to stay home. We can't risk, having you out there. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. I heard you were asking Balamet about pain, about customers. I'm grateful we had a credit line, because even though we got paid from our customers, guess what? They were all late on payment because they closed down too. So they had to adjust everything in their office. So, some of our customers come April, we were very tight on funds. I think most of the money didn't start coming in till mid-May. So I agree, it's very important to have a backup, whether it's money or a credit line, because that was a little tough to, we were like, okay, well, we just won't get paid. I won't get paid this month, but we make sure the employees get paid, right? So you have to kind of balance it out. the PPP was great. And one of the things I learned at PPP is how important it is to have all your stuff in order, because they pretty much ask for everything, including the firstborn I don't have. So, and I'm just joking about that, Valdemar, because you're in the banking world, but it's like, they ask you for everything, right? So it's kind of like, what else do you need to know about my life before I get the PPP or a loan? So, be ready and have your paperwork in ready. And I'm sure Valdemar can add more on that, how important it is to have your quarterly reports from, tax filings and financials in order, because if you don't, then it's sad that maybe a lot of businesses wouldn't be able to get the money and the help that was out there for all of us. But emotionally, it was scary too, because I'm thinking, well, if nobody's going to go to the buildings, are we going to close all these accounts? Are these accounts going to shut the doors? So that was a little scary for a bit there. I was a little worried, but Valdemar, I did have 6 months savings in my account and my bank account to pay the rent and all that good stuff, just in case. But I was nervous that I'm like, this is my livelihood. If all these buildings start shutting down, we're out of business.
Yeah. Mark, we with Latina Style, we've been doing business conferences across the United States since 1998. And one of the things that we always seem to see, because small businesses, man, we're really good at selling our product, but the legal structure of our business is always, when it's changing, a lot of the small businesses are not prepared for it. So what were some of the big legal challenges that you saw on your clients that surfaced this time around, to the very top, because what was happening with the pandemic?
And that's really good. And what we saw was that a lot of these businesses, these folks, the entrepreneurs, they finally realized that how important it is to be correctly structured. Because Absolutely. They were trying to get access to capital. They were trying to get their, like Veronica said, their documents in order, their tax filings in order. And a lot of these folks did not have that because, like you said, they're focusing on selling and they're good at selling and they're good
Absolutely.
at doing business. But then when it came down to the actual legal part of it, where are they correctly structured? And when the bank started asking for certain documents, as far as not only the legal structure, but as far as their tax filings and their tax structure, a lot of them were at a loss for that because that's not what their focus. So then what I saw from this last few years is a big effort to actually these businesses to get properly, prepared and structured the correct way, or to fix the structures that they have, because maybe they actually neglected it. And now when the banks were asking for all these information, that information was basically outdated, was not correct. So I did see a lot of effort from these businesses to actually get in line with, the correct way to actually, legally do business, in a correct structure that the banks know, that the banks recognize, and that the banks make it easier for them to give them financing when it comes to that.
Right.
And they realized about the legal protection as well, because, a lot of them were exposed personally, during this times. And that's what this time actually demonstrated to them, that this personal exposure that they had was putting their personal assets, and their personal, just capital that they worked so much to build at risk. And that's
Absolutely.
what I saw a lot,
And for small businesses, Mark, what we have seen through the years is that even though everybody recommends against it, a lot of small business start with charging your credit card, doing a second mortgage on your home, and all of a sudden that's in jeopardy. Correct. So the legal structure is crucial to a healthy survival. Valdemar, so what did you do when all these, people came to you, all these small businesses come to you and their paperwork is not good? How long did it, I imagine that the bank had to, beginning to respond to that in a massive way, because there must have been a lot of them that were not prepared.
Sure. Yeah, I think it comes down to partnerships, kind of like what Mark's talking about there. The folks that were really good at selling and not really focused on the admin side of things really suffered, because not that they didn't get the loan, but their loans, of course, were delayed until they could get their documentation in place. But what a lot of folks didn't realize is that a lot of the payroll companies, ADP in particular, they were able to provide their clients with free guidance, free documentation. They created a whole portal to be able to access the 941s and the documentation that the bank was asking for with a click of a button. And of course, once we learned about that, and ADP, of course, told us about it, and a couple others, we were able to refer them over to that website and to be able to download what they needed. So, of course, we always want to be a consultative, take a consultative approach to working with clients, and I think that was really eye-opening. And it goes without saying, you have to have good partnerships. We all have our specialties, but we can't be 100% in every single area. And that, in 2020, I was really making sure that people realize that you have to have a banker. You have to have somebody in the banking world that you can call on, not an 800 number, right? 800 numbers serve the purpose, but really have a banking partner to be able to guide you through situations like 2020 and even 2021 is presented. Making sure that you have somebody at your disposal and being able to, of course, count on them as a true partner. But that goes with every aspect of business, Mark's legal side, of course, having a good CPA, a good bookkeeper, because we can't do it all. We have to have good partnerships. And, from the banking perspective, when it came to the paperwork, it was certainly a larger amount of paperwork and requests that the SBA had. And customers were really, thinking like, is this really necessary? But, of course, that was the requirement from the SBA, and we were just passing the message along. And unfortunately, we had to, of course, put clients through the process, and it became a little bit more efficient as we all learned the process. And of course, then going on to the online platform made more efficiency, of course, in that aspect.
Veronica, the SBA had a role this time around. I think that is the most involved that small businesses had actually gotten with the SBA, although the SBA has been there for years, I think since 1958, if I'm correct. But all of a sudden they became really engaged and really, to be really trying to help the country stay alive in many ways. In one of your other lives, because you have many of them, you're the vice chair of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. What did you see through the membership as the biggest challenges that they were facing? I imagine access to capital must have still been the most important one, right?
I really believe access to capital is always the most important for any of us. And, I love what Valdemar said, how important it is to have the right accountant, the right attorney, and if you have a payroll service, the right payroll service in place. Valdemar, I have a payroll service too. It's called Barrett Business Services, and click of a button, they helped me with everything, and it was amazing. And one of the things with us at the chamber is we have now a division just for SBA. I mean, we've had to hire staff for that, on how many people needed help. And I have to applaud our staff out there working really hard with the SBA program. They've helped a lot of Latino businesses that did not have everything in order, and put everything in order for them to qualify for micro loans or loans just to keep them afloat while they were in business. And I really believe that we need to educate our communities, especially the Spanish-speaking community, because there's many business owners that speak Spanish and English, but their primary language is Spanish, and they prefer to have all the information in Spanish. And we've learned that. We're doing with the chamber, I think for the first time last year, we started doing Spanish seminars, educational seminars on educate business owners on how to have everything in order and how they can move forward in their business. And I think that's really important, that we realize that and it's just not in the Spanish-speaking community, it's in all the other communities too. People prefer their native language because they understand better. They want to understand and have a good grasp of things. And, I think of my family, and it's true, with my parents and my uncles and aunts, they prefer, even though some of them speak English, they prefer everything in Spanish because that's their primary language and that's what they understand the best. So I have to remember that. And we pivoted with doing all these workshops and helping all these small businesses, and mainly in the Spanish-speaking community. Now we've been having some webinars with the chamber, and guess what? We have to have it translated because we have a big amount of people participating in our English webinars, but we need to have a translator service to translate everything. As a matter of fact, many times they tell me, you need to slow down a little bit, Madam Vice Chair, because we have somebody translating everything you're saying. I'm like, oh, I forget, because I just get on a roll and start talking. So there's a lot of people that want to learn, and even though they may understand what I'm saying in English, they prefer to hear it in Spanish.
Mark, you must deal a lot in Spanish, actually, since your business deals with moving capital and moving assets across the border, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I always tell people that my background really helped me now in my career and my job, because I grew up along the border, Texas-Mexico border, understanding the biculturalness of two countries. So I've always been that bridge between the country in Mexico to the country in the US as far as doing business. So I always tell people, I think I spend probably 75 to 90% of my day is speaking in Spanish, because a lot of my clients, I have all kinds. I have very sophisticated clients that have these generational businesses, huge companies. And then I have clients also that are emerging, that are entrepreneurs, and basically need more of an education as far as how to do business, in the US. And so, I'm serving as that bridge between, not only the two cultures, but the two ways of doing business and the two economic structures, business structures, and governmental structures, because, they come with this notion of how it is to do business in their country, whether it's Mexico or any other type of Spanish-speaking country, when it's very distinct in the US. So, part of my role is not only providing them the advice and helping them bridge that gap, but also educating them as far as how to do business in the US, because it's very distinct.
Yeah. Valdemar, how were you guys prepared at Comerica with the language issue?
So I didn't face too big of a struggle with the language issue. We've got quite a few team members, of course, that speak Spanish. We are a Texas-based commercial bank, so being in Texas, of course, there's quite a few on the team that are bilingual. But I didn't see much of the challenge of folks having a problem with understanding the documentation or not being able to access somebody that could help translate. I think we pretty much had that covered, and to this point, I really haven't had anybody that really said, hey, this was a big issue for me, but we're certainly able to accommodate them in English or in Spanish.
Valdemar, one thing that I imagine, besides having to get up at 4:30 in the morning instead of 5 like normally do, is that you must have gotten so many requests that, I can see being overwhelmed, because everybody who has a business all of a sudden needed to talk to their banker. So and everybody was in a panic mode. So how did you, as this made you guys much more nimble, better to respond to the needs of your community?
Absolutely. What's interesting is my clients get my cell phone number. So when I say direct access, they had direct access, direct line to me whenever they had questions. So that's just something that I'm very happy to do for a client. But yeah, certainly the pandemic taught us to be nimble, taught us to take different paths from the traditional banking path. One of the things that really opened up bigger opportunities was the ability to do virtual. In the past, I've never done virtual when it came to business. It was always a phone call or it was always in person. That was the comfort level. And then from the client perspective, a lot of them didn't have a comfort with virtual or didn't know about Zoom or Teams or what have you. But that has certainly changed and now allowed us to be able to communicate more efficiently with using Zoom or Teams and being able to talk throughout the day and say, hey, can you jump on a virtual call with me? I've got this concern. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And it made us, be able to have a bigger reach. It certainly extended my reach to clients to where I'm doing business in Austin and San Antonio, just from referrals that have come over. And the PPP process, of course, from a client perspective, when it went well, then of course those clients passed the word along, and that really, helped solidify additional relationships or create new relationships with clients that didn't know about Comerica. So, being nimble was certainly at the top of the list of the 2020 changes.
So it must have been, interesting becoming and from a name on a business card to become a member of the family all of a sudden, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But it was good. I mean, it was I think everybody had some mental fatigue, right? Because dealing with small businesses in the capacity that I do, it wasn't always fun. Of course, seeing a mom and pop operation where they pour their heart and soul into the business, and now there's a possibility of closure was heartbreaking. The opportunity to provide PPP funds and consult them on how to get those funds to keep the doors open, that made my day. It was really a good opportunity to take advantage of for these small businesses, and it really kind of course, showed them the opportunity to leverage things like the SBA and organizations like the SBA to, of course, get the funding that they needed.
Is there at all a silver lining to what we've gone through?
I think there is. I mean, there's always an educational point, especially in the difficulties, right? Whenever we get cut, there's a scar, right? And that scar serves as the reminder of what we went through or the challenge that happened. And obviously, the pandemic showed us all a different perspective on life, a value to life. A lot of people were lost. Loved ones were lost. Even when we talk about business was lost. And a lot of us, of course, we all.
Oops, I think that we had a minute there that you froze for a minute, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Valdemar. You still there? You're freezing a little bit, Valdemar.
I think I'm back on now.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was saying that, they poured their heart and soul into this, and for a lot of small businesses getting through this pandemic.
Veronica, so what's the path that you see as a small business forward? What did you change completely? Obviously all of us had to wake up that technology plays a major role in anything we do. And I don't know, Zoom, the virtual, meetings and all of that is going to be part of our life for times to come. All of us that have part of our company that does conferences or events, all of a sudden have to do virtual things. How has that affected your business?
Well, first of all, I'm up to here with Zoom. It's kind of overwhelming for a while. And I want to find a way to monetize where I can just get on a Zoom and show my customer how to clean their building without having to go to the building. Because in our industry, there is no way to pivot virtually. We have to do it in person. So maybe there was a few memes during the pandemic, which I was loving them, about the cleaning, right? It's like if I send my housekeeper, I want my housekeeper to come on, but she send me virtual instructions or things like that. That I don't know. Maybe I need to.
Hey, there might be a business there for you.
I'm thinking about it. I'm going to need a banker, and an attorney to patent it, because I'm thinking, well, how do I go virtual? There is no way of going virtual unless I teach you how to clean, and you have to clean your own building. But can you imagine? Look at these sky rises in the back. Who's going to want to clean those buildings by themselves? So, our industry, in the service industry, we are providing a service, and I like to say we provide a service that goes unnoticed until it's not done. Nobody notices and it's not done, but we miss one trash can out of this tall building that it's behind me. We'll get like 5 email trail, right? But we take out thousands of trash cans and nobody remembers that. So it's an industry that is a very unnoticeable until, like I said, until it's not done. And virtually there is no way to pivot with it at this moment. But I'm gonna start thinking so I can patent it, Mark, and I'm gonna call you.
Absolutely, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a business. Mark, moving forward, have things calmed down a little bit yet, or we're still in the middle of we're still hearing about the D strain and the Delta strain and whatever, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But as the business calmed down a little bit on the frenzy that we were at one point in time.
Yeah, from what I've seen from my clients and just folks that I talk to, they now know what to do. They've done this for a while, so they're not really too concerned about it in that sense of that something extreme is going to happen in their business or their employees or their customers, because they're taking those precautions on a case-by-case basis. So now I guess the pivot that has been for them is just to focus on the business now, because they have those protocols in place that they don't have to worry about, okay, am I going to get my employees sick? Am I going to get my customers sick? So now it's just focus on the business because that's already been in place. So I think that has not been a focus anymore, especially I think in these last few months, and it's more been about the focus about the business and continuing the business and growing their business.
And how about you, Valdemar? Have you seen things calm down a little bit, or they're still frantic? Well, I guess you are in the second stage, or whatever it is, the third stage on the loan forgiveness part of the equation. You guys working on that with your clients?
Yes, the forgiveness part is ongoing. So first round PPP and second round, all of those have been asked to submit the information for forgiveness. So I wouldn't call it a frenzy. I think we're still at a steady pace. The majority of first round has been forgiven when I'm speaking for Comerica, and a good majority of the second round has been forgiven. And then there's been some that have started making payments on that. Maybe they've used the fund, for things that were not, forgivable. So they've decided to start making payments on those funds. But certainly, the frenzy right now, as Veronica and Mark have alluded to, is on the capital side. Businesses want to get going. Businesses want to ramp back up. It's almost like they're starting over in some sense of a word. You're having to start from scratch because a lot of the clients that you have or had, are no longer there. So you're wanting to build the marketing up for the brand. You're wanting to, of course, get brand recognition, grow the business. And to do that, you need some capital. So maybe the revenue that's coming in is enough to keep the lights on and the employees paid. But when it comes to growth, some additional capital is needed. And that's really where the focus has been for a lot of small business owners. How can I get access to capital? What are the options for me? Interest rates are incredibly low right now still. So it's a good time for people to take advantage of capital and make the most out of it. And then, of course, grow their business. And then hopefully we come out of this, in a good way and having learned something that's positive for the future.
Baltimore, is it harder now to get a line of credit?
Well, it certainly has its challenges. Whenever you're approaching a financial institution for any access to capital, of course, we're looking at financials. We want to see, what did you do in 2020? Well, obviously 2020 took a pretty big hit for most businesses. For some, of course, they had some of their best years where they were able to capitalize on the opportunity that they had. But it certainly has its challenges. So maybe where a business might have qualified for $300,000 in access to capital before in a line of credit, maybe at this time they only qualify for $100,000. But it's certainly, a step in the right direction. Taking advantage of some capital that's available can certainly move that business forward. And hopefully in the next 3-4 years, as the business is growing, we can revisit that line and, of course, increase it for whatever the need might be at that point.
Is there a time frame when you get a line of credit, or it's just the amount? Once you get to that amount, the line stops?
So the line of credit, it varies depending on the option that we take advantage of for the business. We have conventional financing in place where it's basically an open line of credit for whatever amount of time that's needed, as long as the business financials are still within reason of underwriting. When we leverage the SBA, which Comerica is a preferred SBA lender, when we leverage SBA products, they've got a 7A program. It's a small line of credit that goes from $10,000 and can go as high as $350,000. That has a 4-year draw period, meaning that the business owner can go and tap that line of credit off and on as they need it and pay it down as they want over a 4-year period. Once that 4 years is done, it goes into a term out period. So if there's $20,000 that they still owe, they'll get an additional 6 years to repay that amount and bring that balance to a close. But depending on the situation, the terms are always different, but that's certainly something that we consult on quite a bit.
I'm always amazed when bankers talk about lines of credits of like $10,000. What do businesses actually ask for something like that? Because it seems to me that $10,000 you pay for the gas to work.
Yeah, well, we do have that area. The SBA provides that amount because some businesses are on the smaller end. Think of the person that has gone from hobby to business, right? And maybe is in their second year in, and maybe they're generating 100, 150,000 in annual revenue. Those are the companies that 10,000 is really the difference maker in growing to 300 to a $500,000 company. So it certainly makes a difference for the little company, just as much as 350,000 makes a difference for the $1 million company. It's all relative, and it really just based on the client themselves. That is how, what kind of difference it's going to make for them.
Interesting. Mark, it occurred to me that, one of the things that the pandemic showed was that we have a lot of Latino businesses that they're cash business, that the people, all of a sudden have cash. What is the legal recommendation to do with cash? You're going to keep it still under the mattress? I mean, what is legally, what can we do with just pure cash?
Yeah, well, that's really good because it's very difficult now, anybody like dealing in cash, because the banks don't want to deal with cash, clients don't want to get paid in cash. It's just a lot of, legal ramifications, especially now during these last few years, even prior to the pandemic, where it's been changing to a cashless society because, one, you have the money laundering issues, you have the tax evasion issues, you have the reporting that has to be made. If you're going to go deposit cash in the bank's going to make you fill out the form that's going to be sent to the Treasury Department, regarding the cash, so it's these businesses that deal with cash, it's really difficult for them because a lot of people don't want the cash, then they're afraid of having to declare the cash, even though it's legitimate cash from a business. They're afraid of it because it's cash, and they think that they're going to be looked upon with suspicion because they're bringing all this cash in, especially these mom and pops that have retail locations, and that's a really serious issue when it comes to the cash, aspect of it, because one is a lot of these businesses, they don't take it to the bank, they have it stashed and they can't do nothing with it.
Wow. Do you have to face that issue, Veronica? Do you have clients that want to pay you in cash?
No, everything is paid through check. We're a corporation, so we don't have any of the cash issues. Everything is deposited in the bank account. Now we have the direct deposit, direct deposit where some customers directly deposited, or some of them are still using the system of paychecks. So, no, we don't face that issue, but I think that it is a fine line. The only time we've had any cash transactions, I think, has been like, somebody needs something done in their home, and I just say, just pay my guy directly and let him, make some extra money. But other than that, those are very rare occasions. Everything is dealt with checks.
Yeah, because even if you go to Starbucks and McDonald's, you're paying with a credit card. The other day, I paid for a coffee at McDonald's with a credit card, and I thought, man, they wanted to give me return in cash. I said, I don't want cash. Here it's a credit card for $1.49 or whatever it is. So what do you do with a pile of cash that comes in, Valdemar?
We'll certainly take it. There are some businesses that do operate, from a cash perspective, but 2020, I think, was an eye-opening year for a lot of folks. A lot of people didn't want to take transactions in cash any longer. Small businesses, there was some thought on, well, if you touch cash, it could be, contaminated.
Absolutely.
I think it propelled the digital format of things more in 2020, to where even debit cards now and credit cards are moving as a secondary form, and primary form of payment a lot of times has now become your digital wallet.
Right.
You know, being able to have your credit cards and your debit cards on your cell phone, and just not having to touch equipment anymore, just wave your phone or tap your credit card on the top and not have to enter a PIN or touch any type of equipment. So a lot of small businesses even took advantage of that for the experience for their clients of upgrading their equipment to touchless and being able to, of course, handle that transaction in a friendlier way for the client. And then anytime you're creating a good experience for a client, they're sure to return, versus if there's challenges, right? Like we're a cash only business. Well, I don't have any cash. Well, okay, or there's an ATM across the street. Well, I'm not coming back. When there's challenges for a client in the buying experience, it makes it for an unpleasant experience, and it limits the return of that client. So a lot of small businesses took that upon themselves to upgrade their card processing machines and create a touchless environment to really make a good buying experience for clients.
Well, it's been very, very informative and illuminating speaking to all of you. They have given me the sign that we need to begin to wrap up. So Veronica, what's your advice moving forward, both as a business owner and as a business leader?
My advice is important to have the right attorney, the right accountant, and the right banker in business, right? Have faith that everything's going to be okay, because at the end, everything is going to be okay. And to continue on with your passion, follow your passion, believe in yourself. That's what I like to say.
Well, thank you for that, Mark.
Like I always tell my clients, you always have to be prepared. You have to be prepared in the good times and in the bad. And I think what a lot of this has taught them was to be prepared, whether it's with capital, whether it's with reserves, whether it's, just your legal documentation and tax documentation, because you never know when it's going to come up. And I think some of my clients were prepared based on the experience that they came through when the last recession hit. And then we came to this. So a lot of them were already prepared because that's what I always preach is it's always better to be prepared than to be, reacting to things. And I think that will save businesses, a lot of headache, and it adds to their survival is to be prepared.
Absolutely, and the time to have your accountant, your legal advisor, and it's not at the time that you get a nice little letter from the IRS telling you they need to talk to you. Baltimore, what are you seeing moving forward into the future? What's your advice for small business?
So I'll certainly echo what Mark said. For me, top of mind is preparation. And the second thing that I would recommend is partnerships. Making sure that you're prepared for the unknown, right? You don't want to fly by the seat of your pants. You want to make sure that you have a plan in writing, not in your mind and not just out in the air. Have a plan in writing. Make sure that you're revisiting that plan and making adjustments throughout the time. And then, of course, partnerships. You've got to expect more from your bankers. That is my word to everybody. If you're a small business owner, you should have a high expectation of your banking partnership. And if you don't have that, it's time to make that partnership happen or look for another bank. And that's certainly, 2020 showed us that you have to have somebody on the inside to kind of guide you and help you along the way, just like we would in any other aspect of life. We want to have people we know that we can count on to, of course, guide us in the direction that we need to go.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I want to close is on a personal issue for Baltimore. Something that I think, we get in everybody in the mail around the clock is this is the best time ever to refinance your house, refinance your car, refinance whatever. Is this the best time ever?
It's certainly a great time. I don't know if it's the best time ever, but historic lows on interest rates make it very motivating for people to take advantage of cash, take advantage of refinancing. Whenever you have that opportunity, of course, it's going to lower your whatever you're paying out, right? Lower interest rates mean less in payments. But you also you want to focus on the cost. How much is it going to cost me to get this refinance done? and is it going to be cost effective overall? So there's a few aspects that you want to view and not just run into a refinance or run into capital. You want to make sure you explore the options and make sure you're partnered with somebody you trust for guidance.
Well, Veronica, Mark, and Valdemar, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you so much for everything that you do to help small businesses. Because, you know, small businesses in reality, their lives, you know, when you're a small business owner, your business is not separated from your personal. It's all one thing. So it affects anything that happens with your family, anything that happens in your community. So from all of us that at Latina Style, I really want to thank you for everything that you do. Veronica, I'm glad that your business, you know, is flourishing. Mark will be talking because, you know, we have a lot of clients of Latina Style that might be very interesting in your advice. And Valdemar, thank you for being a Latina Style partner. Not only that, but you just were selected as one of the top Latina Style 50 best companies for Latinas to work for in the US again. For everything that you guys do, in the community, thank you so much. And we look forward to the next installment whenever that comes, because I'm sure that the challenges are going to continue, whether they're exactly the same as now or they're going to be different. So from all of us at Latina Style, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert and Mark. And
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Latina Style.
These past few months, we've all learned a few new things, like how to frame the kids out of the meeting, or how to go grocery shopping without going anywhere. We've learned just how important technology can be, but we've also learned what's most important: people. At Comerica Bank, we bring it all together. Experience full-service banking at Comerica Bank and raise your expectations of what a bank can be.